Greetings and welcome to this short video presentation on how we go about configuring high availability for a 2-node cluster up inside of Server 2012 R2. This diagram represents the topology we're going to be creating for high availability and our 2-node cluster. So you can see that I have my Iscuzzy target machine. I have 2 nodes. The 2 nodes will be brought together as a cluster, and that's what we're aiming for. High availability and failover. Normally our data storage would consist of a NAS or a SAS that would be attached to our Iscuzzy target. But for this demonstration we're going to create a storage solution by creating another virtual hard drive and just adding that to our Iscuzzy target. So let's go ahead and get started with that real quick. So I've gone up here and I'm on my Iscuzzy target machine. Now I'm going to go to the VM and I'm going to go to settings. We're going to create another hard disk that's going to be also 60 gigs in size. So we're going to go click on the add button. We're going to select hard disk from the selection, say next. We're going to accept the default for Iscuzzy, say next. We're going to create a new virtual disk, say next. We're going to store the virtual disk as a single file, say next. And we can give this a friendly name if we want, but we don't have to. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to store this inside of the same location as the virtual disk for my Iscuzzy target. So up inside of the folder where I keep this virtual machine, I have created a new hard disk and I've called it Iscuzzy file storage. I'm going to go ahead and say save. Then I'll say finish, and you'll see that I now have 2 hard disks here that are available up inside of my Iscuzzy target. We can go ahead and say OK to this. Now our next move is to go ahead and open up Server Manager, and we're going to go up to Tools, and up inside of Tools we're going to go to Computer Management. Once we're inside of Computer Management, we're going to go to Disk Management. Once this opens up, it's going to refresh and it's going to look for all the drives that are currently attached to this virtual machine. You'll see that we have our newly created 60 gig hard drive that we just set up inside of the Iscuzzy target. Now we have to go over here where it says Disk 1. We're going to right click on there. We're going to say Online. That's going to come online, and once that happens we're going to right click again and we're going to say Initialize Disk. We're going to say OK to this. Now we're going to go ahead and create a simple volume, a new simple volume, and we do this by right clicking inside the unallocated white space, and we're going to go to the new simple volume. That brings up the wizard. We say next to this, we're going to use the whole 60 gigs. We say next to that, we're going to let the default of the drive letter E stand as is. We're going to say next to that. We're going to go ahead and format it NTFS, and then I'm going to change this over to cluster storage. We click next, and we're going to go ahead and allow it to become NTFS formatted. We're going to leave the allocation and we're going to perform a quick format. Click next. This is the confirmation page. Click finish. Our 60 gig hard drive has now been formatted and it is ready for use. It is called cluster storage. We'll go ahead and close this out. Now if we go to our desktop and we click on this PC, you'll see that we have this drive currently available on our Iscuzzy target machine. So our Iscuzzy target is going to virtualize this particular volume and send it and make it available to our node 1 and our node 2, which will be part of the cluster. I'm now back over onto my primary domain controller, my DC1. I'm now going to go to the all servers, and I'm going to add the Iscuzzy target and my node 01 and node 02 to the all servers pool. This is going to help reduce the administrative burden of me having to go back and forth between these 4 different machines. So I'm going to right click on all servers. I'm going to click add servers. Now I'm going to type in the name of the machines that I want to add to the server pool on my DC1 server manager. I'm going to begin by looking for my Iscuzzy target. There it is. I'm going to go ahead and highlight that, move it on over to the pool. Now I'm going to look for my nodes, and we're going to find both of those, I hope, and we do. So I'm going to take both of these, hold down my control key, and I'm going to use the arrow, move them over to the pool, and I'm going to say OK. Now you'll notice that in just a moment the DC1 server manager will have refreshed, and I'll have all 4 of those machines available inside of one server manager to administer. In this next part of the lab, we'll be installing the Iscuzzy target server feature. To do this, we're going to go ahead and use my server manager on DC1. I'm going to go up to Manage. I'm going to click on Add Roles and Features. We're going to go ahead and use the role-based feature-based installation. Say Next. We're going to select the server on which we want to perform this action, and that's going to be my Iscuzzy target machine. Select that. Say Next. Underneath the server roles, we're going to scroll on down to where we come to Iscuzzy, which is going to be right here underneath my file and storage services. Open up the file and Iscuzzy services. Go on down till we find the Iscuzzy target server. Check that box. Add the features and say Next. Now we're just going to go ahead and say Next one more time. And we're going to go ahead and say Install. Once the installation has completed, we can close out that wizard. This next part of the lab requires that we start the Iscuzzy initiator on our 2 nodes. This is going to allow our 2 nodes to communicate with our Iscuzzy target machine. So we're going to go ahead and select node 01. Again, I'm still on DC1 up inside of the server manager. Once I've selected the node that I want to perform this action on, I'm going to go over to Tools, and I'm going to scroll on down till I come to the Iscuzzy initiator. Go ahead and launch that. When this warning pops up, go ahead and say yes. Now just walk on over to the other node, node 02, highlight that, go to Tools, and again, select the Iscuzzy initiator from the context menu. The OK button or the Done button on this property page is already selected for us by default, but to see it, we can just go up to View and we can say Full Screen. And now we can get to the OK button. So just go ahead and say OK. We'll be back later to configure those properties. For this next step of the lab, we're going to go ahead and configure our Iscuzzy target server. And again, I'm on DC1 up inside of its server manager. I'm going to go ahead and open up File and Storage Services. I'm going to select my Iscuzzy target. I'm going to select Iscuzzy from the list. And when this pops up, we have this option here to create an Iscuzzy virtual disk. Start the new Iscuzzy virtual disk wizard. Go ahead and click on that. We now have to tell our Iscuzzy target which volume we want to use. So we're going to go ahead and select the one that we created earlier. Move this up just a little bit, and we're going to say Next. On this next page where we specify the Iscuzzy virtual disk name, I've called this one File Storage. I'm going to go ahead and say Next. We're going to go ahead and use the full 59.9 gigabytes. So I'm going to go ahead and type that in. And we're going to use a dynamically expanding. The reason we're going to do this is because we don't need to use the whole 60 gigs of our host machine's hard drive. We're going to go ahead and set it for dynamically expanding so that we don't run out of disk space on our host machine. I'm going to go ahead and say Next to that. We're now going to assign the Iscuzzy target. We've got that new option selected. We're going to go ahead and say Next. On this next window, we're going to go ahead and give our target a user-friendly name, and we're going to configure the access. You can type in a description if you so desire. I'm going to go ahead and say Next. On this next window, we're going to go ahead and add our 2 nodes. So we're going to click on the Add button, and we're going to find our 2 nodes. Node 1 is already present. I need to add node 2. To do this, I just click on the Browse button. I type in the word node. I do a search. We'll check names. Select node 02 from the selection and say OK. Node 02 is now ready to be added to this pool as an initiator. I'm going to go ahead and say OK to that. Each of my nodes has to be added one at a time. So I'm going to go ahead back over on here and grab node 01, and I'm going to now add it to the pool. Now you'll see that I have both of them inside of my access servers. For this next screen, we can leave this completely blank. We don't even have to mess with it. We're going to go ahead and say Next to that. And now this is the confirmation selections, and we're going to go ahead and say Create. That takes care of our Iscuzzy target. We're now going to move on over to the nodes and configure them. We can close out the wizard. For this next part of the lab where we configure the nodes, so up on my node 01, I'm going to go ahead and launch Server Manager. Once Server Manager opens up, I'm going to go to Tools, and I'm going to go to Iscuzzy Initiator. That pops up. Now I'm going to type in my Iscuzzy server target name, which is Iscuzzy target. I'm going to go ahead and do a quick connect, and there it is. I'm going to go ahead and say done. Again, to see the OK button, I'm going to go to View, and I'm going to select Full Screen. I'm going to say OK to that. I'm now going to move over to Node 02, and I'm going to do the same thing. So we're going to go to Tools. I'm going to click on the Iscuzzy Initiator. I say yes to this. If need be, you can go back to Tools and click on the Iscuzzy Initiator one more time. Again, I'm going to type in the name of my target server, which is Iscuzzy target, and I'm going to say Quick Connect. There it is. I'm going to say done. I'm now going to go to full screen one more time so I can see my OK button, and we are done. We're now ready to install the failover cluster feature on each of our nodes. To do this, we're going to go ahead and start with node 1, and I'm going to go to Manage. I'm going to go to Add Roles and Features. I'm going to say Next. I'm going to select node 1. I'm going to say Next. Now I'm going to go down here to my Features, and I'm going to select. I'm now going to move on over to my node 02 and perform the same action, installing the failover cluster. So I'm going to go to Manage, Add Roles and Features. I'm going to go ahead and make this full screen here. I'm going to say Next to this. I'm going to go ahead and select Role-Based or Feature-Based Installation. There is my node 02 selected from the server pool. I'm now going to go down here to Features. Underneath Features, I'm going to go to Failover Clustering and check that box. I'm going to go ahead and add the features. I'm now going to say Next, and we're going to install. You're going to do that on both of the nodes for your 2012 cluster. We can go ahead and close the Add Roles and Features wizard. For this next part of the lab, we need to install the failover cluster feature on both of our nodes. So I'm going to start with node 01, and I'm going to go up here to Manage. I'm going to do Add Roles and Features, and then we're going to go ahead and select the role-based or feature-based installation, say Next, and we're going to select our node 01. I'm going to go ahead and say Next to that, and now we're going to go down and we're going to select Features, and we're going to select Failover Clustering, check that box, add the features, say Next, and begin the installation. Once the installation has completed, we can close out the Add and Roles Features wizard, and it brings us back up to our server manager. We can now go to Tools, and we can go to Failover Cluster Manager. This is the process where we go ahead and validate our configuration for our clusters. So I'm going to go ahead and start the validation process here by clicking into the right window pane and selecting Validate Configuration. I now need to add my two nodes to the cluster. So we're going to go ahead and browse on over, and we're going to type in node, and we're going to check names. We've got both of our nodes. I'm going to go ahead and highlight both of them. Say OK to that, say OK to that, and now the verification process continues. Now I'm going to say Next, and I want to run all tests. Recommended, say Next. Now I'm going to go ahead and say Next one more time, and we're going to allow the test to complete. Once the failover validation has completed, we can leave the box checked for Create a New Cluster Now using the validated nodes, and when we click Finish, that'll start another wizard. On this next wizard, we're going to go ahead and just say Next to this page, and now we have to give it a cluster name. I'm calling this cluster File Storage. Now I have to give the cluster its own host IP. This has to be unique within the network and cannot be in use at this time. So I'm going to select one that I know is working, and I'm going to use 51 for the host IP. I'm now going to say Next. The validating settings continues on. That brings up the confirmation page where we can say Next, and the creating of the new cluster begins. Once we have completed the creation of our new cluster, we can go ahead and click Finish, and we see now that we have our cluster present, and it's going to refresh, and it's going to give us some information about our new cluster. In this next part of the lab, we're going to see how we go about confirming that our high availability is actually working and that our cluster is actually online and doing what it's supposed to be doing. So to do this, we've got to go look at that hard drive or that virtual drive that we created up inside of the Iscuzzy target. That was replicated out to our nodes. But if we go in and we look inside of our PC, we'll see that it's not present. That's because we have to do the same thing we did on the Iscuzzy target. We have to go make it available. So we're going to go up inside of our administrative tools, we're going to go to computer management. We're going to do this on both nodes, by the way. We're going to go to disk management, and you'll notice that I also have the same virtual drive also present in here, and it's right here. So this one is currently online, but it's not allocated. So I'm going to go ahead, right click, and I'm going to create a new simple volume, and we're going to go ahead and run through the wizard real quick. Just keep clicking next, and we can call this file storage if you like. We'll go ahead and click next, do a quick format, and now we're going to do this on our node 02 as well. So this one's ready to go. So I'm going to go back over here to my 02. I'm going to go to Tools, go to Computer Management, and again, we're up in here, and we're going to go to Disk Management. Do the same thing we just did. And once we're done, we'll see that the drives are now available. The virtual drive that we created up on the Iscuzzy target is now available on our two nodes. So I'm going to go ahead and right click through this, and we're going to make it online, and then we're going to go ahead and initialize it. It's been initialized. So now we're going to go ahead and close this out, and we can go take a look at it. Now that we have initialized both of those virtual drives that were sent over to our initiators from the Iscuzzy target, we will be able to see them up inside of this PC. And here we see this one is available on my node 1, and I have another one that's available on my node 2. Now if I open this up and I right click in here and I create a new folder, and we're going to call this confidential. So inside of my confidential folder, I'm going to right click, I'm going to create a new rich text document, and we're going to call that admin passwords. And if I close this out, so now if I go over to my node 02 and I open up this PC, we will see that under file storage, we will see the same folder that I created over on my node 01. That is the high availability, and that's how we can confirm that it is working. Whatever I do on one server will be replicated on the other server in the cluster. That's all the time that we have for this video demonstration, and I hope you found it informative. But if you have any questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to reach out and contact your instructor. And I'll see you in my next video.